The speed at which the internet has grown and the extent to which it has altered our lives as we know them are quite astounding. Even just a few years ago, our social lives, dating habits, romantic relationships, and everyday interactions were drastically different. Social media bridges barriers between people all over the world by giving us rapid access and the opportunity to engage with people we might not have otherwise met. It would be hard to find someone who hasn't used social media or dating apps to meet new people these days. 1 in 3 relationships start online, per a survey. The most widely used dating app is Tinder, which has over 75 million users worldwide. Given that these users swipe up to 1.6 billion times a day, it stands to reason that a large number of them wish to socialize and meet new people. Among the millions of users was Ashlyn Black, a 25-year-old fashion and outdoor enthusiast who enjoyed camping, antique stores, and Nirvana music. She worked as a carer for young children who had issues with their schooling or development, and she lived in Layton, Utah. Her family said she was naturally good at advocating for people who might have found it harder to speak out for themselves, and that she enjoyed doing so. According to Ashlyn's family, she was eager to become a mother and had a strong desire to do so. Everyone said that she always had adoption as her plan, and that her decision was definitely impacted by her employment as a carer. Her infectious laugh put everyone at ease, and she was a beacon of warmth, generosity, and patience. On May 23, 2020, Ashlyn used Tinder just like a lot of other people. She soon paired with 24-year-old single parent Ethan Hunsaker, who was living alone in a rented home after filing for divorce. The two got along right away and decided to go out to dinner and drinks that night. Ashlyn was brought up by Ethan from her home at approximately 9 p.m. The two headed to a neighboring pub and spent over 4 hours there before heading back to Ethan's house. Several hours later at 3:19 a.m., it was Ashlyn's date who had made the call, Ethan. However, he stated on the phone that he didn't even know Ashlyn's last name and that he thought the police should murder him when they arrived at the house. Police sped over to the property on North Reed Avenue. In one of the bedrooms, Ashlyn lay face down, stab wounds all over her body. The paramedics did everything they could to save her, but they were unable. Ashlyn Black was pronounced dead at the scene. When the other policemen showed up, Ethan's body was covered with marks and scratches, and it was clear that he was the one who made them. After their night out, the two went back and shared a bed before turning in for the night. According to Ethan, when he woke up, he said Ashlyn was asleep on his arm. Ashlyn tried to fight him, but he just started choking her as hard as he could, and it took him about a minute to finish. Ethan walked into the kitchen, took a knife, knelt over her, and started stabbing her while she lay unconscious on the floor. He said he saw her bleed out for around 10 minutes before calling 911. This is about 3:20 in the morning. And Nicole, this is a story that is hard to make sense of. What are you learning tonight? Well, Nick, we've been talking to neighbors this evening, and they say it's very hard to even come to grips that something like this has happened in their neighborhood. It's just weird, to be honest, because we've lived here over 2 years, and I love living here. It's a relatively quiet neighborhood. Guys with like hazmat suits and booties on were over there. That's not like your typical scene you wake up to. Coleman says he would see Ethan outside from time to time. I waved at him a couple times, mowing his lawn, and he seemed like an all-right guy. Super scary. I mean, you kind of hear about these things, but they're not necessarily 3 houses down from you. Officers located a female lying on the floor of the home, having sustained multiple stab wounds to the torso. The motive behind the homicide is under further investigation. However, the attack appears to have been unpromoted. The 24-year-old woman who police have not identified yet died at the scene. Even after he came clean, the officers were baffled as to how this had occurred. Ethan reported that the date went well and that they were getting along well. No out-of-control fights or disagreements had occurred. 1 minute while they were sleeping, Ashlyn passed gone. But Ethan didn't hesitate to say, quite bluntly, that he had only invited Ashlyn over in order to kill her. He said he knew, when he picked her up that night, that if she went back to his house, he would kill her. He appeared calm and unoccupied when they captured him. He was taken into custody and held there without being allowed to post a bond. Police have identified the woman stabbed to death on a Tinder date. Ashlyn Black of Layton was 25 years old. In the last year, she is the second young woman here in Utah killed by a man that she met on a dating app. In a statement, Black's family called her accused killer a monster. Hunsaker is being held without bond and faces charges, including first-degree murder. Chris Martinez, CBS News. To everyone's surprise, he immediately entered a not guilty plea to Ashlyn's murder. Some individuals who knew Ethan were startled to learn what had happened, but others weren't as shocked. Ethan Hunsaker's manager claimed that during a brief employment with a concrete company, he soon became involved in one-on-one interactions with clients because of his outgoing personality. Other employees, though, noted that something appeared to be wrong. After he and his ex-wife got divorced, he changed the way he behaved. After he began to withdraw, he gradually began to arrive at work either late or not at all. A few months later, Ethan lost his job due to an alleged argument, the details of which are still unknown, with a female coworker. People said he made a number of ominous and scary comments, as well as expressing a wish to hurt and kidnap women. He also reported having suicidal and murderous ideas. The person in charge of Ethan commented, "I guess he was just this silly little kid who always made us laugh. That was always making a stupid statement." Then, towards the conclusion of the previous year, it was just weird. From being a hoot, he became someone that nobody wanted to be around. He continued by saying that the reason he had been arrested didn't really surprise him. Autumn, a woman, got up too and told her story. She continued by saying that Ethan had been bombarding her with texts and messages on social media until only 1 week prior to Ashlyn's passing. The two had met through an old job and had known one another for almost 11 years. Autumn said that they got along well right away and would hang out throughout their lunch breaks. She said that she had given him no reason to believe they were anything more than friends and that she didn't want a relationship with him. Still, Ethan started pursuing her in 2019. He would find other ways to interact with Autumn on various platforms, but she would finally quit communicating to him due to her constant excuses and let him know that she wasn't interested. The most recent text was actually last week. She said she never felt that she was in danger or that he was aggressive, but that he was very persistent. From Instagram to Snapchat, Autumn Daly says his text messages were all the same. She often didn't respond, and when she did, she politely declined the invitations, even one asking for her to come to his house. And when she heard the news of what had happened over the weekend, she was shocked. She says she's glad she followed her gut, but is heartbroken for the family who lost their daughter to this senseless crime. It's such a heartbreaking situation. Now, Daly says that he had mentioned that he was going through a divorce, which is something that she believes is the reason why he wanted to connect with someone. Now, Dave, a quick search of his criminal history shows that he really doesn't have anything in his record, but again, trying to piece together everything that's happened in the last couple of days. Going out on a Tinder date hours later, atrocious crime scene, but it seems like investigators have enough to put all of this together. So the issue will be the mental state of the defendant now, and what his mental state was at the time of this alleged killing. But as I said, as he gets into court, we should get much more information about the evidence and the manner and cause and everything else associated in that case. So we'll continue to track that one for you right here on Court TV. Liz Solis of the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition pointed out that a lot of people were blaming Ashlyn on social media instead of Ethan. It's critical to emphasize that the victim bears no responsibility whatsoever. Where, when, or how the victim and the criminal initially met doesn't matter. The decision to commit the violent crime was taken by the offender. Advocates like Jen Oxborough are concerned that on social media, people are blaming the victim. It doesn't matter what anyone chooses to do. They never deserve to be hurt or killed. Oxborough says people using dating apps is not the problem. This is something that's a reality. This is how people date. And Tinder is the most frequently used dating app that I'm aware of in our culture right now. She says this case highlights the ongoing problem of violence perpetrated against women by men they know or trust. And so we need to remember that this was a choice to enact violence by the person who perpetrated the violence. And that's where the responsibility lies. Just over 1 year later, June 2021, fresh information in the case of a young woman who was brutally killed while out on a first date. The accused murderer entered a guilty plea. Ethan Hunsaker modified his not guilty plea to the satisfaction of Ashlyn's family, despite the prosecution's refusal to make a plea bargain. In the end, he entered a guilty plea to murder as well as a mental illness plea. His attorneys asked that his mental state be taken into account when determining the appropriate sentence. After being evaluated by multiple physicians, Ethan was found to have severe alcohol use disorder, recurring psychotic characteristics, generalized anxiety disorder, and significant depressive disorder. A very emotional case for the family. Joshua Egan is the attorney for Ashlyn's family, and today that family is feeling some relief. This morning, Hunsaker pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. There is a strong sense of relief that the case is finally progressing again. It's been in limbo for over a year now without really clear direction where it was going to go. Hunsaker also pleaded mentally ill. Prosecutors say that doesn't change the fact that he still could spend the rest of his life behind bars. Doesn't exonerate them or excuse the conduct at all. It holds defendants accountable by giving them an appropriate sentence. But if there's specialized treatment that is needed because of their mental illness, then it addresses that as well. We determined that a plea offer would not be appropriate and that the defendant should plead guilty to murder or that we should take the case to trial. The judge acknowledged that his mental state at the time of Ashlyn's murder was irrelevant, but he did agree to take it into account when deciding on the proper sentencing. Consequently, the judge was left with several options. He might have gone straight to prison, had treatment at the state hospital for 18 months before being transferred to a prison, or received treatment at the Utah State Hospital for an infinite period of time. Judge sentenced Ethan Hunsaker to 15 years to life in prison for murder in February 2022. But before he could serve out his sentence, he had to spend 18 months in the state hospital receiving rehabilitation. Though he made it clear that this was not the primary reason he was approving the course of treatment, the judge expressed his hope that Ethan would get the help he needed. According to him, he was concerned for the other inmates and the security personnel because he thought that Ethan might hurt more people and that taking this step would protect them more. Apologizing, the judge stated that there were numerous limitations on the court. Nevertheless, Ashlyn's mother believed that despite making sure that accommodations were made for the individual who had forcefully stolen Ashlyn away from them, the court had not been sensitive to the needs and sentiments of their family. The crime was heinous as well as foolish, according to Ashlyn's family. Our lives are forever changed and our hearts are shattered as a result of the horrible actions of another. Sadly, a bright, vivacious young woman who loved advocating for those unable to speak for themselves passed away. Her friends' and family's lives are forever altered. The sister of Ashlyn said in court, "We haven't talked about Ashlyn. We have yet to talk about her identity or her impact on the globe. She was a good person who tried her hardest to be kind." Without a doubt, Ashlyn Black was already having a profound impact on a large number of people, especially young lives. It is imperative that we remember her as the selfless, kind, and sympathetic 25-year-old that she was. Her father claimed that she always had a special gift for being late for things, But he added that he would wait for her no matter what if it meant she would return through the door to see him.